In this episode of the Kind of Bold podcast, we're exploring the realities of postpartum life, a period that's often misunderstood, idealized, or overlooked entirely. Many women enter motherhood with expectations shaped by what they've heard about birth and early parenting. But the reality can be overwhelming. The sleep deprivation, the isolation, the constant responsibility, and the intense, often conflicting emotions of love, exhaustion, and fear. To help us unpack these experiences, I'm joined by Erin Kasungu, co-founder of the Rooted Family Wellness Center in Ottawa, who is also a birth and postpartum doula and a pre-postnatal fitness specialist. Whether you are in the thick of postpartum, preparing for it, or supporting someone who is, this conversation is meant to offer clarity, honesty, and compassion. I'm Camille, and this is Kind of Bold. Postpartum experiences vary widely. This conversation reflects some, not all, of those realities. The focus here is on aspects that are often difficult and still unevenly supported. If you are currently pregnant or in the early postpartum period, please listen to your heart as you dive into this episode. So Erin, it's so special to have you as a guest because you were my doula while I was pregnant. And I don't know, you might recall, but I was pretty open to different kinds of scenarios when it came to my son's birth and my postpartum experience. I was like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. If I need to get an epidural or not, like if I need to breastfeed or not, I'm open to anything. But I didn't account for the hormones, the love, the exhaustion, all of that. And that changed everything. And essentially all plans, expectations I had went out the window.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if this is the sort of thing that you see a lot with the women that you support.
Full circle moment, right? When, now it's really lovely to just be on with you today and what you're doing. So I appreciate it. Yes, it is. I think a lot of women go into the birth experience, a lot of especially type A's, thinking that, they can kind of plan for this journey that they're going to have and might read all the books, might not read all the books, but have the sense that it'll likely go this way.
It's so true what you said about type of personalities. That is totally me. I like to be in control in my life. I'm a big planner. I have lists. I had read all the books except I hadn't read anything about C-sections. For some reason, I thought this was not going to happen to me, that I was somehow protected. And therefore, I did not know what to expect. This came as a shock, to be honest. You know, how I was quickly whisked away and then strapped to the OR table. And that was pretty traumatic for me. And even a vaginal birth can be traumatic. Giving birth is actually one of the most intense physical and emotional experiences that a woman can go through, right? Like
absolutely
giving. So I'm wondering why we still treat this as almost trivial. Like, I don't know if it's because women have done it since the beginning of time and it's like the most natural thing, but it's still a pretty major experience. So like, why do you think society treats it as like, oh, it's just another birth?
What I've heard a lot is as long as the baby's healthy. Right? I've heard that many, many times. And so maybe this comes from this kind of martyr syndrome, maybe a little bit that our grandmas and grandmothers might have had along the way, right? As kind of the sacrificial piece to birth. And so, yeah, I have heard that, like, especially doctors or care providers who will say like, well, your baby's healthy, right? And it kind of excludes that this was an experience equally for the mother as well, being born. So yeah, I think it's kind of this missing the honoring of that mother who passes through the journey as well.
Is that a gap that you're trying to fill as part of the work that you do? Shifting the focus away from the baby a little bit and onto the mom, because she matters too. And in fact, her well-being is essential and determines how well the baby's going to be, right? Like, we have to be well in order to care for a baby.
That's right. And exactly, if the mom is unwell, everything goes awry, right? And so that's exactly it. It's funny, we run a baby cafe free drop-in every Thursday. And I've made it a habit now because one mom mentioned this to me a while ago. I asked her name first. And she made a call like before I asked her baby's name. She's like, that's the first time anyone's asked me my name at a
Oh my
drop-in.
God.
And she's like, you see me, right? And so I was like, oh, like I didn't even think about it, right? And then like usually, right, our instinct is like, oh, how old your baby? What's his name?
And how are you?
Right?
Right?
And how,
Not
right.
like, does the baby sleep through the night? And does the baby feed well? How are you? How are you feeling?
Or like,
You
yeah,
know,
I
in this
see you.
new phase of your life.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is it, right? The focus is often on the baby. We have our family comes over and it is wonderful. We're welcome this new little being and oh my gosh, they're so cute. I don't know if you had this experience, but you almost sit in the background of all that. Like I'm leaking everywhere. I'm in pain. I just want to go lie down, right? And I'm supposed to be joyful and happy, but at the same time, I'm trying to recover. It's a challenging role to take on, and we don't have quite the community supports that are necessary to do the job correctly and heal in the way that we should be.
And you said the expectation is that we should feel joyful and happy. That it should be the most amazing moment of your life. And if it's not, for whatever reason, there's this guilt or this feeling like, what's wrong with me? I have terrible health anxiety. So anything to do with my child's health is always on my mind. And of course, they're so little when they're born. And there's also family history. I was just worried. And sometimes I still feel sad about it 8 years later, but honestly, the day he was born, I wouldn't say I felt joyful and happy. I was just worried. I was anxious to get confirmation that he was well. I don't know if other moms have shared that with you, that maybe that day wasn't the best day of their life, however much they love their child.
I feel like that moment, we build it up so much. And you have this kind of expectation of gratitude, right? That you have the healthy baby. So shouldn't I be grateful? It's often overwhelmed, right? And it's a mix and it switches. I can go from very high, the highest of the high, you're looking at your baby's eyes, and then that complete anxiety, like you talked about, like, oh my God, are they breathing? Sometimes it's like, where's the joy again? Because I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed, I'm healing. And so that, like, kind of finding that moment, and maybe it comes later for a lot of people, right?
Two things can be true, right? You can discover this love that you have for your child, so it can be this beautiful feeling, and at the same time you can feel uncomfortable feelings such as anxiety, perhaps grief as well, right? Because it feels very real that you're leaving behind a chapter of your life and moving on to a new one. I remember when we brought my son home, he was so tiny in his car seat, and we put the car seat on the floor and we just looked at him. And I just remember in this moment, I could not believe how much I loved him. I had known him for 2 days and I was just looking at him and I could not believe the love I was feeling. It's like nothing I had ever felt before. I'm sorry for my partner if he listens to this. I love him very much, but it was just so, so special. And at the same time, we had one of the hardest nights. He was crying. And of course, I was exhausted from my C-section. So I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to some of the emotional challenges that moms feel in the first few days, or some of the key things that women might experience in their very early postpartum phase.
Yeah, I mean, there's hormonal shifts happening in those first 3 to 5 days, right? It's dramatic. So you're at a very high progesterone, estrogen levels in pregnancy. When that placenta comes out, those levels drop within the first 24 hours, right? And so that can lead to the crying for no reason, the irritability, or the confusion, that anxiety also. So not only are you kind of dealing with this physical trauma as well as kind of this emotional trauma, but these hormones that you were relying on in pregnancy are gone until they kind of come back to normal levels. But yeah, you get this kind of crash. So I think that can, for those who have had anxiety before pregnancy, that might trigger some things like, oh my goodness, maybe this is happening again. Doubts of being a good mom, anxiety levels rise because I don't know about you, but I also would like look over and make sure they were breathing and put my hand on my kids and be like, okay, they're okay, right? So you kind of become hyper aware of keeping that human alive, as well as your mind can have intrusive thoughts too. A lot of that happens. It can be very normal to just feel like maybe this baby won't live, right? So I think the kind of mental talk, along with now the sleep deprivation. So yeah, just this kind of disruption in those early days can kind of make you feel like what happened and what did I do?
And we don't really get told about those hormonal shifts. I do not recall anyone, my OBGYN or family doctor telling me that I should anticipate hormonal shifts and what that might look like. And a lot of what you're describing is normal. And yet if it happens to you, it doesn't feel that way, right?
No.
It feels abnormal. Like, what is wrong with me? I've never felt this way before. That is not the picture perfect image of postpartum that everyone told me about. So I wonder if you could speak to like why this lack of awareness and education, and also what do you advise the women that you support when they go through this?
So I guess I do feel like a lot of it's focused on the birth, right? I mean, especially an OB experience, it is like testing your levels and making sure you're healthy in your pregnancy, which is great. We love that. That's important. But like you said, like once that baby's out, it's like,
that's it. Well, the job is done.
Story's done. Off you go. And you're just everyone. We see that OB or we see that midwife weekly. And then all of a sudden, baby's born. It's like, see ya, come back in 6 weeks or, whatever, figure it out. I think that's a big part of it. It's just this the continuation of care. Whereas I'll use surgery, for example, a lot of people go in for surgery, you go in and then that post-surgery care is fantastic, right? You get all the exercises.
That's
right. You get your plan for recovery and then you go see a physiotherapist. So there seems to be this shift that needs to happen that like the birth isn't just the end point, it's mostly the beginning point, right? And so how do we flip that to the conversations about your pregnancies?
Yeah, I remember when I met with my OB after the birth, the only thing she asked me, and she was great, don't get me wrong, like the care that she gave me throughout pregnancy was great, but the only thing she asked me is if I wanted to be on the pill. Like, ouch. That's literally all it was about. And so do you have any special advice, or how do you reassure women, or what is it that you say in these situations?
I'm focusing on them, looking at them and addressing them first and making sure, like we said, are you okay? Right. And letting them voice some things. Did I make the right decision? Did this get forced on me? It's just kind of honoring and listening to the birth story or what they're feeling about the experience that happened. I think that's a big part of it. And then just reassuring, like, this is hard.
And one thing that is not talked about enough, in my opinion, is how brutal not sleeping feels like. And of course everyone expects that sleep is going to be disrupted in the first few weeks, but no one really tells you how terrible it can be. And your postpartum experience can really vary depending on whether you are lucky to have a baby who sleeps or not from the get-go, right? We can do anything if we feel rested. And feeling tired is very different from being sleep deprived. We know from research that chronic sleep deprivation can impact memory, reduce emotional regulation, increase stress hormones like cortisol, and even affect the immune function. How does sleep loss impact new mothers in terms of what you have experienced?
Well, it is a torture. Sleep deprivation has been used as a torture technique. So, yeah. So if you think about it that way, it can literally feel like torture. It can feel like I couldn't get my bearings. Like I just every day seemed to fall into the next. And I just felt like I couldn't quite get a grip on the day or myself. Then eating goes down the tube, right? Like when we're not sleeping well, we're like grabbing sugary things because we're tired, or more caffeine.
Yeah.
So it has that ripple effect onto every aspect of our life, our eating, our anxiety levels, our irritability, our ability to think positively or find solutions. It's deeply impacting a person's anxiety. Could fix the sleep piece, you might actually find that lightness to life again. I think it's one of those things we can tell people that you might be a little sleep deprived and baby's not gonna be sleeping much in the first few weeks, but I feel like everyone has that like, I'll be fine, right? Kind of a little optimism.
Well,
And
how bad
imagine
can
it,
it be? How
right?
bad can it
I'll
be?
be
I did go out late in
right.
the past and, I
I've
was
worked on
fine. And I wonder here, because obviously we don't want to scare expecting moms and new
Mm-mm.
moms, but at the same time, we want them to have the tools that they need to be as prepared as possible. So it would be great if this could be talked about so that they can put a plan in place. Do you have anyone to delegate the feedings to? Are you guys going to take turns? Do you have any, like, just
Yeah.
as a conversation starter to make sure that they have the village that they need? Because I don't have any family in Canada.
Mhm.
I severely underestimated how hard it was going to be because I'm a very independent person. Generally, I was
Mhm.
like, I've done so many things in my life. I can do this. But this is one of those things that's very hard to do alone.
100%. Yes. A lot of people do their birth plan. So they think about all the things that they want. We know birth plans are, I would say, more of a wish, the birth wishes. So how your
Yeah.
birth's going to go. And then learning how to cope with what actually unfolds. And then the same thing, like a postpartum plan, right? And sometimes if you don't know, you don't know. That's what I tell a lot of people. So if you didn't know that maybe you needed to plan for when you were going to sleep. My partner will take the baby and I'll sleep. Well, it's not that easy, right? Maybe both of you are up in the night or your baby's only breastfeeding. So you will have to be up every 3 hours. So kind of talking through game plans. And that's as a postpartum doula, that's what we would do. Okay, I arrive and it's like, who hasn't slept yet? Okay, he hasn't slept. Okay, dad was up all night. All right, he goes to sleep. Mom, let's chat. And then maybe you want to have a shower. I feel like it's 3 adults to one baby, to be honest, in those first couple of weeks. It really is, right?
Oh, interesting.
And I think that's what's so surprising to people. They don't think like, okay, we're tag teaming. But the tag teaming is actually, well, one is tired, is up all night, or didn't sleep very well. So they're going to go to bed. But the other one, okay, well, now they need to shower and there's no food and the garbage needs to go out and the dog needs to be walked. And that, right? So that whole list of things that used to happen easily, to like taking out the garbage when you have no baby is a you don't even think about it, right? But it's so much effort to think that was
And
a
a lot
pretty
of
bad,
people don't have a village.
right? Oh yeah, or
Like they moved
mhm.
across the country
Yeah,
or they have friends. Like we had friends, but I mean, they worked during the day, right? Like
that's
I was
right.
on my leave, but also it was winter. My son was born in November.
Hmm.
We only had one car that my partner needed to take to go to work. So it just felt really lonely. And that's something that caught me off guard of how lonely I felt. Like you would think that having another person with you would mean that you have company, but I
Right.
felt the loneliest in my life when my
Hmm.
son was little.
For sure. Yeah. So isolation. So even with a partner, even if you have a partner with you, there is this deep sense of isolation. I think there's a lot of like repetitiveness to having, can you
Yes.
remember that? Just like, okay, get up, feed, change the diaper, go to bed. Like
Yeah.
right? It's just
It's
this kind of
boring.
endless boring cycle. Right? And they're like, they do nothing. They're not very
Yeah.
exciting. And they're not, right? They're on this cycle and it's very repetitive and they can be lonely. And so,
Mm-hmm.
community and forcing yourself to go out and seek it is so important, to have somewhere to go where they can just get a break from the repetition and get out of the house and just kind of land somewhere there where people understand kind of what they're going through.
Speaking of going out, I remember for me, it was very daunting. Just the amount of preparation it required. As much as I wanted to get out of the house, just the thought of having to go and potentially missing something or the baby being hungry and not being in a space where I could breastfeed or give a bottle, that created so much anxiety. I had to really force myself out,
Mhm.
even though I'm someone who is usually pretty,
Mhm.
sociable. That was one thing I didn't expect at all.
Right? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Especially because he was born in November. So you had the
Yeah.
the whole
I didn't
the
think
whole
about that.
cycle. Yeah. You had the whole
Yeah.
cycle of winter with a newborn of like trying to get out of the house. Like mine were born in May and June. So a little easier time. I pulled them the stroller, off we go. But leaving the house in the winter, it's like a whole other land. So having to plan your exit all around their schedule. It takes almost a whole hour just to get yourself and the baby ready, feed, change, pack the bag, figure out where you're going, get them out in the car seat. It can take almost a whole hour just to get yourself out the door. So that can feel very intimidating and anxiety inducing to just even leave. And like, is it worth it to even step out of the house, especially in the winter time? So yeah, so I always say, I'm so grateful. I know how hard it was for you to leave the house. I honor that. And I'm so glad you're here. It took so much for you just to leave the house. So just even like honoring that in people and reminding them, like, just showing up is hard.
I think we need to help mom feel like this is temporary too, right? Like it feels like it's permanent.
It feels like it's forever, right?
It feels like it's forever, but it's temporary, but the days are really, really long. So it's hard to project ourselves and hope for better days when you're in the thick of it.
100%. So like what we talked about, that repetitive cycle, you eventually just like, is this my life? Is this it?
Exactly.
Did I sign up for this?
Is this my life? Totally.
It's a season. It did eventually pass. I did sleep a little more and they do adjust and life gets a little bit easier and you start to find that rhythm again. But it does take that little unsteadiness.
And everything is new, right? Even if you've read all the books and spoke to people, you're doing everything for the first time. So if you take this out of context, let's say you were to do any job for the first time, you wouldn't be expected to excel at it right away. But for some reason, when it comes to mothers especially, there's this idea that we should intuitively know exactly what to do and how to do it well. And I find that puts an enormous amount of pressure on women.
Absolutely, right? There is that kind of messaging that even breastfeeding is natural. If it's natural, then it'll just happen. It's like, no, breastfeeding is like a job, right? There's positions and there's the baby's anatomy and your anatomy, and it's clunky and you've never done it before. Parenting is, you learn on the job, unfortunately, right? How to put them to sleep or notice their cues that are unique to your family unit too. Every baby, and this is the one thing I've learned, is every baby is different. There's no baby the same. And so that's where it comes very tricky to not compare yourself to others as well. So why isn't my baby feeding? Why can't I get my baby to latch, right? Why they can, or why is that baby sleeping through the night and my baby's not? And my boys couldn't have been more different in their personalities right from birth. And knowing that these little creatures are also in themselves all unique and will have different needs and different anatomies and different personalities right from the get-go.
Yeah, I think this is so important to mention because if you have a baby who doesn't sleep through the night, who doesn't feed well, it's like a reflection on your ability to parent it.
Yes.
And I think that is so unfair because like you said, they have their own little personalities. My son was never really a fantastic sleeper. I think there is definitely worse, but he was definitely not a good feeder. We tried introducing solids at 6 months and then he refused it. We tried it every 2 weeks after that. It's only until when he was about 8 to 9 months that he started to be interested in having solids, and he's been picky ever since. I mean, is it anything that I did? I don't think so. But did it feel like I was failing at it? Making all those purees and spending time making food. I always remember that one time. He must have been about 10 months old. I just lost it. You know those plastic containers where you freeze baby food? I had so many of those in the freezer. I took the entire tray and I threw it into the sink. I was like, I'm done. Because everything would end up in the garbage anyways. And I just felt like, why cannot, for the love of God, feed my child like everyone does? Like, why do women feel so guilty of every step of the way when things don't go the way that society expects, when we know that it's down to the baby's personality?
Right. Comparison is a thief of joy is a quote I love because it really is. There's this little judgments that come along from parents, then our peers, and then there's social media. Throw that on top of everything. Am I a good mom? Am I doing the right things? I remember that for my first, he would not sleep and we would bounce and we would bounce. He just needed constant contact and he was very, very attached. So we'd spend hours and hours. And I remember just like all the other, he's sleeping through the night. And I did take it very personally. Like I wasn't doing enough and I was doing something wrong. So he scrambled, he tried lots of different things. And then when my second came, he was very more relaxed. He was just like, sure, I'll sleep, whatever. And I was just like, how it wasn't me. It was me. So
Oh,
I remember
yeah.
that finally feeling like, oh, he's a completely different baby. This is what the other moms were talking about. So I get it now, right? You're gonna look outward and find your values. What are you as a family valuing? What, when, and how are you getting sleep? And if that's not happening, how can we change that and make that a priority? Or do you want to co-sleep? Like, do you want the baby in your bed with you? Then let's figure out strategies to make that happen. If you really are uncomfortable or that's not working for you, then let's try something else.
There's too much information out there. It's
Mhm.
overwhelming. Like you mentioned, co-sleeping versus,
Mhm.
the baby sleeping in its own crib.
Mhm.
But it's with everything. Like every breath they take, there's an opinion out there as to how they should take it, right? We don't even listen to our guts anymore.
No.
We Google everything.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you see that with mothers, and do you advise them to take a step back and think? Because like we have access to so much information these days and so much conflicting information. It's like, how do you make decisions?
Yeah, you get lost. And like you said, you kind of lose your own ability to trust or to know or to develop your own values around things. So an example is like starting solids. And there's a conversation about you shouldn't be giving them mushed up food, or you shouldn't start with cereal, or you should start with baby-led weaning, or you shouldn't because they might choke. And so yeah, you'll find advice on both ends of the spectrum. Sometimes it's like, put the phone down, take a breath, enjoy your baby. See if you can just be present with them, watching them.
Yeah, being in
right?
the present moment. It's very
Yes,
difficult.
very
I'm thinking
difficult.
of padding or no padding around the crib, and stuffies or no stuffies in the crib. Or apparently you can't even leave your baby in the car seat on the floor. It's just well, at least I didn't have ChatGPT didn't exist when I had my son, but that would have been another layer.
Another layer.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
This might
Information.
actually be a little bit better in some situations than Google, because like Google, all it takes is you ending up on a forum where
Right.
this one mom had this one catastrophic experience doing XYZ, and all of a sudden this is going to happen to your child.
Right. Yeah. The anxiety swirls. Yeah. Yeah. ChatGPT is a bit more direct, but it's also pulling from the confusion of information out there.
You mentioned breastfeeding earlier, because that also was challenging for me. I had
Mhm.
low supply. I mean, I'm convinced I did, even though I went to see several breastfeeding, what do you call them again?
A lactation consultant.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think we went to see 2 lactation consultants, and both times they said, oh, everything's fine. And so I felt like my experience and my feelings were dismissed completely, because I was like, do you think I would have come here if I thought everything was fine? I mean, yes, I have a lot of time on my hands, but still, I felt like every time I would put him on the breast, he was crying and he just didn't seem satisfied, right? But they saw him feed. Of course, it's kind of like when you've got something going on and you go to the doctors,
Right.
and of course,
It
when you
clears
see the
up.
doctor, it's gone,
It's
right?
gone.
But it's like, come on, just believe me. If I
Mhm.
come here, it's because I do have a concern.
Mhm.
Also, I felt like it was, again, a very lonely experience. I felt chained to the couch, and at the end of the day, I felt completely touched out.
Mhm.
I actually came across this term recently, feeling touched out. I wish I had back then, because that's exactly how I felt. Like my partner would come home after work and I would say, just get this baby off me.
Make them.
Like,
Yes.
just get it
Uh-huh.
off me, because he had been on me all day. And I felt bad about that. I was like, I'm his mom. I love him more than anything. Why
can't
in
I
this moment?
handle this?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was very common. I remember we lived in an apartment at the time. I would like stand by the window at like 5 p.m. and just like wait and wait for my partner to come back. There was just this anxiety and that feeling of just being a bit trapped with this human that needs you so much, and that you just like, okay, like my cup is empty. I need a moment to refill somewhere. So
Yeah.
yeah. So knowing.
And a shower is not
Mhm.
enough, right? A shower can be a moment of self-care,
For sure.
but it's only a few minutes. And that's, like you said, it's not going to refill your cup. You need more arms around you that can take the baby.
You do. And knowing what fills your cup, right? Like to really understanding what that is.
Yeah.
Is it going for a walk? Is it getting a bit of sunshine? Is it reading a book? Like, what is that? Like, find something that's going to make it feel like you did refill your cup. It's really
But that's the
important.
thing. You're so focused on the baby
Mhm.
that I almost lost sight of my own needs and what I wanted.
Mhm.
Like, I know that if anyone with the best of intentions had come to me, what do you need to fill your
You
cup?
wouldn't
I
have
would
been
have
able
been
to
like,
say it. Mhm.
I don't know. All I can think about is his well-being and what
Mhm.
he needs
Mhm.
and what I should be doing to keep him alive.
Mhm. And
You
sometimes
know?
the things you used to do don't give you the same pleasure, I guess,
That's
right?
very true.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
it is almost having someone else just tell you what to do too is helpful. Go for a walk. Okay, thanks. Someone almost recognizing that your cup is empty would go a long way. That's seeing the mom kind of back to the top of our conversation. That's like someone being able to say, "Are you okay?" And being able to
Yeah.
respond honestly, which is
But
hard to
being
do.
able to respond, that's the thing. I keep saying, yeah, we need to ask moms how they are. We need to
Mhm.
provide support. But I think you're in that headspace where you're not ready to accept that help. And going back to breastfeeding, what is your general approach when women come to you with breastfeeding issues? Or what trends are you seeing in terms of moms breastfeeding versus choosing to bottle feed?
My goodness, I'm very good.
That's a loaded question.
It's loaded.
This could be an
There's-
episode on the
Yeah, it's true. So sleep and feeding that baby are the two postpartum challenges that land at the top of someone's journey and how well it's going to go. Right. So
Okay.
if you're sleep deprived, we know we talked about that. And if feeding isn't going well, that can derail. It
Oh, yeah.
derails the whole thing. And so if the expectation, again, choosing to bottle feed, that's fantastic. And if you're going to try breastfeeding, yes, that can lead to some of the most stressful times in the postpartum. And they've been saying breast is best. So now it's fed is best. And now
Yes.
I'm like, sanity is actually best. I'm like,
I love that.
like, go back to like, if the mom is not doing well, nobody's doing well. And so the feeding piece, I feel like brings in all of these things we've talked about, the anxiety, the I'm not doing good enough, the shame, all of these pieces get wrapped into that feeding journey. And so when it's not going well, or if it's bumpy, and a lot of it is bumpy at the beginning, it's clunky, like you, right? Sometimes milk's not coming in. Sometimes your nipples are on fire. Sometimes, right, baby's got a tongue and lip tie, not letting them open their mouths up. So they've got issues going on. Sometimes they're really gassy. We're seeing mastitis and engorgement too. So a lot of issues that probably could be resolved with a little bit of help. So if I could wave my magic wand and I could only choose one thing that we had more support for would be that feeding journey, because I feel like that transforms everything. There's pressure on the baby to gain weight in those first 10 days. And if they're not gaining weight, right, there's the pumping, there's the triple feeding, and then introducing formula. So there's a lot of emotion with all of that and feelings of failure. So that piece for me, I
felt all of this.
Yeah, you felt it. Yeah. But for me, if I were to do one thing, would be the one thing. If we could have one-on-one feeding support in the early days, at least the first 2 or 3 weeks, where there was someone you could go to for free, like to have this as part of your postpartum, your surgery plan, like your knee recovery.
Well, may the world hear you through this podcast, Erin.
Yes. And our team is there, and we have a team of 2 lactation consultants, and they're very busy and it's phenomenal, but it's out of pocket. We understand that for the most part, right? So people who can't afford this are now either struggling or trying to go to some drop-ins and really trying to map their own journey. So all the anxiety around just getting the right support for feeding, I think could curb a lot of anxiety, a lot of postpartum mental health issues.
Yeah, this is the biggest thing I regret. I felt so invested in feeding my child and feeding him the way that I had intended on feeding him. With my low supply, I was just crying nonstop, like, why can't I feed my child? Yeah, this is the part where if I could talk to younger Camille 8 years ago, I would say, just think of your sanity. Like you said, sanity is best. Start bottle feeding. It had such a major impact on my mental health, and it made everything else harder.
Yep.
And I'm not saying this as if you encounter any challenges, don't try to seek help and fix it. But we had tried, and it wasn't, at least what we had tried wasn't working. And I kept pushing it. at the expense of my own sanity and mental health. And that's one part I regret for sure.
Yeah, we're putting the onus on that sleep deprived, over anxious, overwhelmed parent to find the resources to support them. So it's backwards. Like, why isn't that proactively being done? Okay, when baby's born, you're not getting that kind of continuous support or in-home support unless you have a midwife. So that's where, again, the midwifery care is important. They come to the house. So I remember that I got checked at home and they were looking at latch and helping me there. And it was so much more relaxing than I think having to have left the house, get there. And then you're trying to feed, like you said, in front of someone, and it goes well. And they're like, good to go.
And
you're
it
like,
goes well.
Right?
Yeah.
You're like, no, it's not. So there's just a lot of rushness to that system as well.
Now, Erin, if you were to give a final word for our listeners on how to navigate the postpartum period, you know, how to find that balance between love and overwhelm, what will be one takeaway?
I think give yourself some grace and forgive yourself. There's a lot of that shame. You and I, we have perspective now. We look back and we say, yeah, I would tell myself X, Y, Z. So I do feel like removing some of that guilt and shame and some of those expectations, I guess, on what you thought it would be. So recognizing maybe where are you putting an expectation versus kind of what's unfolding, and then kind of having some grace for yourself, because it's not easy. It's not supposed to be. And then you will get through it. So just having that hope you'll get through it. It's a season. And then just, you know, come out the other side and we'll be changed. And then you'll have your lessons and you'll be able to pass those on to other people. And that's the hope, right? We go through hard things sometimes. And part of that is we do then need to make sure we pass that along to other people.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, and reduce our own judgment. I think I became a much better parent once I had kids. You know, like, you know, they say like you're a perfect parent until you have kids, right? So I think as much as things are hard, sometimes we go through things so that we can support other people who are probably having a hard time as well.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, you can follow wherever you get your podcasts or share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Until next time, be bold, be kind, and don't apologize for holding both. I'm Camille, and this was Kind of Bold.